So, good morning. We are having, bear with me, we are having all sorts of camera issues this morning. So I am completely disorganized. How's that? I know people don't like that microphone in view of the camera because it has road all over it. I really don't care. I get a kick out of these guys that say they're not paying me to advertise for them. You know what? If Rode wanted to pay me, they could. But their equipment is half decent. And I don't give a crap they put their name on it. Good for them. They're proud of what they make, right? Let's get off that soapbox really quick. So, like I said, we are having a little bit of camera issues. When I go into the picture-in-picture, this camera I can't zoom because my phone won't connect to the camera. I could, if I could get behind the camera and see the screen, I could mess around with it. But it's not that important, right? So let's switch over. I wanted to just turn the cameras on. I've kind of gotten a little bit behind in my video schedule, though I have been pretty good about getting a video out every couple weeks. I was ahead of the game a little bit, and I think over the last day or two, my last video that I had in the queue posted. So I need to start, actively, just trying to get the cameras turned on when we're tying, and get some more videos out. So I've had some really good feedback lately. Some good questions. There'll be a video coming out soon. A little bit of show and tell on the desk. Nothing scripted, just like usual. But over the years, I've had so many questions about my tying setup. So I thought I'd show it. What I put in the vise just now is a 1/16 ball head. It has a 2x strong hook. I'm tying Marabou jigs that will be sold in the fall. Used primarily here in northern New York for steelhead and the lake trout. There's a few shops north of me, and they sell up along what's up there, Salmon River, the Great Lakes, so forth. North of Syracuse. And I just finished a couple colors. I had some really nice strung Marabou. These bags are old inventory, and they're mostly tips. These are, they're nice Marabou feathers, but they have a really thick stem. They're not very good for palmering. For really small jigs, taking the fibers from the side of the quill like this works perfectly. But for the jigs we're doing today, we're just going to take the tips themselves. But I did a bunch of white, I did a bunch of black, and I was using some nice strung Marabou. I've had some questions recently on where I get my Marabou. Like I said, most everything I have, I've had in the inventory for decades. Though I did just pick up, and it's the larger pack. It's I think they're anywhere between $20 and $25 a pack, which seems kind of expensive for Marabou. But the hairline strung Marabou, really nice. Again, it's the thicker stems, so you're not going to want that for palmering. If this was a larger jig, a larger head, you know, those jigs look really nice when you palmer the Marabou feather onto it. But for these, because it's a smaller head, you know, I go down to a 1/32 for these. So using the tips like so is exactly what we're looking at. Now this shop, they like a nice full bodied jig, and I think we've talked about this before in the past, but I take 2 feathers, pair them up so they match. On my vise, I'm looking for the tail to be the length of the body past the bend of the hook, which is just past this 4th marking on my vise, and I just put that on with a Sharpie marker. Sometimes I take my acrylic paint and just put a dot on there. But what we're doing is I'm adjusting my pinch just so it's just past that 4th marking. And you can save these butt ends, like I said, if you're tying smaller heads, using the fibers right off the side of that quill. Is very easy to use and works very well. I might have put a few extra wraps on there just because it was hard to see the pink against the pink. I am using pink thread. Black thread would also work perfectly and look really nice for this jig. But for this color, pink thread, pink tail, and we're using pink flash. So 3 to 4 tips. All 3 of these tips were fairly thick, so 2 tails that are twisted over in what become the back of the jig, and then just to finish it off with just 1 at the bottom. You could use 2. Like I said, this shop is asking specifically for the Marabou body to be nice and full. But as I lock that into place, you can see there's no hook shank showing, and when we're finished with this, you'll see that it's a nice ball. So I do unlock the jaws of my vise just so I have easy access to the lateral line of the jig. And I should be keeping an eye on my volume. Again, it's been a while since I made a video, so my wireless microphone and transmitter, both of them were dead. Didn't want to take the time to charge those before I turned the cameras on, so I just plugged the microphone in directly. Now what happened here is I pulled out one of the fibers as I was removing my hand. I just replaced the crystal flash. This might actually be crystal hair. Where's my packaging? So I'm using, it's pink. It's a crystal hair CH16. Crystal Flash has their own. It's just a pink crystal. Very nice flash. You could use an opposite color, something that would complement the pink, maybe a purple or black. Pearl looks really nice as well. But this jig's pink on pink. So again, just I rotate my vise, so I have access to the other side. Lay that right into place and lock it in. And I'm trimming the crystal hair so it's the same length as the tail itself. Some tires like to leave that a little bit longer as maybe a teaser, but I usually trim my flash to the length of the tail, or sometimes a little bit shorter, but I don't usually leave it long. So the thread I'm using today is more of the Textreme 3/0, what they call their standard thread. They also have other flat threads and wax threads, but I like their 3/0 standard, which is a nice alternative to the 2/0 nylon that I have always enjoyed tying with. Now, off camera, of course, I'm going to finish these with a lacquer-based head cement. So let's turn off my face, and we'll take a nice look at this. It's a pretty jig. Now they're fishing these under a bobber, typically, drifting them down the river. These are very sharp hooks. It's the Mustad 2X, what is it, 8388? I don't recall the exact number for the hook itself. I'll put the information down below. Super pretty jig. Shows up nice. We do these in chartreuse, black, white, black and white, an olive, a purple and black, and then custom colors, I guess, as they're requested. Now, I was a little sloppy when I was, you see me removing a little bit of, there's a little bit of flash, just a tiny bit, that kind of must have dripped down the hook shank, I guess, as we were molding it. And usually I take care of that before I paint them, and I must have just skipped that step. So you might see me on a couple of these heads just kind of cut that away. Goodness. So I'm not 100% sure when this video will be out, but like I said, we're getting towards the end of the summer. We just had all that rain and flooding and the heat wave, and now the kids will be going back to school soon, so fall is coming. I had a fairly good inventory, so I didn't, usually I would start these jigs, I would start tying them the end of July. But now we're towards the end of August before I've, taken a look at my inventory and made a list of what I need to have on hand for the fall sales. Now, of course, we tie a little bit extra. I don't have, if I figure I'm only going to sell 10 dozen, I don't tie just 10 dozen, right? But I try to have six to 12 dozen of each color ready to go at the beginning of the fall. And then I will tie up what I need as it's ordered. If I get an order and they want it ASAP, I'll take it out of the inventory and either jump in the car take a drive up or I throw it in the mail. And this I had two tails. One was, or two tips. One was very thin, so I just took, you know, a medium sized tail and that small one, put them together, and that fills it out so they match the first one I did. But you know, if a bait shop called me on a Friday and I know that putting them in the mail, they're not going to get them until during the week, I might take Saturday and Sunday to tie up what they need, so I'm not taking it out of my inventory. So on Monday morning, first thing, they're getting the jigs that I just tied. And that just makes things easy. You know, you don't want to completely deplete your inventory. And it keeps the customer happy, and it keeps jigs on hand. So if I do get called from a different shop or other customers, there are some local guys that know that they've known me for so many years, they just come by the house. But we've had a pretty good summer. I haven't done as much fishing as I'd hoped to, but we did just get back from a week down in York, Pennsylvania. I did a lot of fishing in between rainy days with my son-in-law. We've posted some pictures recently on the Instagram, some smallmouth. We had a day that I don't think we caught anything under 19 inches. 18 inches maybe, but nothing smaller than that. And it was over, I know we caught over 100 inches of fish, and it was 3 hours, 4 hours. Yes. Awfully good day. The following day we went to the same spot and we caught a couple decent fish, but it wasn't the honey hole that it was the day before. And I don't think there was no difference. I don't think anything changed. Weather was about the same. The time of day was a little different. We were maybe an hour early, but we had a good time. They were having the kayak, the Hobie Bassmasters tournament that they have there every year. So we actually went up closer towards Harrisburg, just to stay away from all the tournament fishermen. We didn't want to make them feel bad, right? So if you haven't read it, go ahead, check out the website, jworthanti.com. I did post a little essay on my thoughts on tying thread, specifically for tying thread for jig tying, why I use what I use, and some of the reasons for it. Goes a little bit into talking about fly tying and connections I've made, whether they're right or wrong. You know, in my mind it makes sense, but connections from fly tyers and the history of tying lures, right? And how it's evolved and changed, and how we learn from history. These guys throughout history making fishing lures and jigs and streamers, and so some of the things I think as I read and learn and try to relate it to my own knowledge So I try to draw a few conclusions, and I put some of those conclusions in the information there. So if you've checked it out, let me know what you think. You might think I'm full of crap, which is fine. You could let me know that too if I'm way off. I do think I have to watch the video. During the video where I talked about my tying thread, I was talking about Walt Deddy, and then I continued, and I think I meant to say Darby. Harry, I wanted to talk about Harry Darby, and I think I kept using Deddy's name. Can't remember. But I have to go back through. If I made that mistake, I feel terrible. Just, you know, a slip of the tongue, I guess. Deddy and Darby, they were partners. You know, the four of them, the husbands and wives, and known each other, you know, since school, I guess, right? High school at least. But I think I mixed up the names in my bloviating. But, like I've always said, what we're doing right now, completely unscripted. I don't, you know, aside from thinking this morning, hey, while I'm tying, I gotta turn the camera on because I just haven't done it in a while, I really don't think much about the topic, so to speak. It's not scripted. Most things I do is not scripted. I did a little show and tell on the tying benches this morning, just because I was actually just playing with one of my other GoPros, and I wanted to see how the batteries were doing, because I don't usually use regular GoPro batteries. Just like with, so I have a Canon, what is it, M200 that I use as my main camera, and I have the GoPro over here. I just use these Anchor batteries. This one's a 10,000. I think the one up at this camera is a 15 or 20. No special reason, I just picked that one just to see how it was. I have two others of these. You know, I like these 10,000. The Power Core Slim by Anchor. Nice little batteries. They're not too heavy. I don't mind. You know, throwing them in the backpack when we go hiking. They're not so heavy that you know, they're useful. We're throwing them in the backpack, using them as a. Actually, I have 4 of those, because in my work bag I actually have another one. So when I'm doing my travels for the day and need to charge my phone, have the GPS running on the phone for an hour-long drive, you have to charge the phone in the afternoon. So the weight isn't restrictive. Anchor products, I kind of like those. I have a couple Anchor speakers. I have Anchor cables. Yeah, I like Anchor stuff. Where is my... So, very simple. There is nothing special to these jigs. The Marabou jigs. Marabou is nice and easy to tie with because the tips are usually square. You might have seen me kind of throwing to the side, like some of these that might have, you know, tips that are broken, or they come to a point, you know, probably from the position on the bird's body that those feathers were. But for the most part, you know, you can throw those away and you just pick the nice marabou tips that are nice and square. But very simple. 3/0 thread. We have some pink crystal hair. And these jigs are, you know, they could be fancied up just a little bit, maybe tinsel with a contrasting color, a 2-color body, you know, a light pink and a dark pink, or a purple and a pink with this fluorescent pink head would look fantastic. Black and pink, chartreuse and pink. And no eyes on these. They're not really made to resemble a bait fish. I think these really just resemble an egg sac or something similar to that. And I don't even know if this time of year if the fish really are interested in feeding, or if a lot of the time it's just an aggression type strike. Here's an example, 2 feathers that they're not bad, but they're sparse. But I'm going to combine the 2 of them together to make a nice bunch, nice thick bunch. This same jig, this type of, you know, using marabou and tying jigs of this size, you know, a standard ball head jig with a regular hook, fine wire hook even, works really well for bass. You know, how could you go wrong with a black marabou jig for bass, right? Some of these feathers are a little trying to be a little picky, making sure that they look similar to the bunch you're putting them with. And tying jigs like this goes pretty quick. If I wasn't chatting away, it'd be much faster. And I do add a few extra wraps, mostly just to compress the marabou, the little fuzzy parts, just to get them out of the way for when I do add the tinsel. But it's still the same basic movements is locking on a bucktail, first a couple wraps towards the bend of the hook, then crossing over and back towards the head to lock that thread into place. You can wet your finger just to push back some of those fibers, keeps them back, and I just pulled out my crystal hair. Let's do this properly. So in regard to what jigs I tie when, so I mentioned that these marabou jigs, which we sell in the fall, I typically would start tying the end of July, early August at the very latest, right? The 1st of August. So I would spend all of August, let's say, tying these Marabou jigs, making sure that we have a good selection in inventory, maybe even packaging a few up so they're pre-done, pre-ready to go. And then early to mid-September, what I'm working on is either casting and or painting or at least making my lists of what I need to cast and paint for my winter time tying for mainly the walleye jigs. So 5/8, 1/2, 3/8, etc. And then I would start tying September, October, the pro football rather, and the any of the ice jigs that I might need. So the bananas and gigabits, if I need to fill those boxes, just so we have those heads cast and painted. Tying the pro footballs and the pro darts, which we've tied in the past. There's a couple of videos probably for both of those. So I would be tying the ice fishing stuff in September, October. They should be done by November, though if it goes into November, it's not the end of the world. Our ice season, we're lucky if it's in December. Love it. We've had a few years when, you know, first week in December, and we were actually on smaller lakes and ponds, and had a nice cold winter. But more often than not, it's, you know, the third week in December or a little bit later that we're getting out on the ice, unless we're making a big trip up north. So and then of course all winter long, December, January, that's when I'm tying bucktails for the springtime, summertime. I already talked to a buddy of mine. He's already itching for ice season, and we might be taking another trip. Haven't been there since before COVID, but be taking a trip up north, doing some ice fishing up in Canada, which I've always enjoyed. We've always had a good time, usually going up to Lake Simcoe for perch. And surprisingly for me, we've taken trips to the Adirondacks here in New York State. I've gone to places in the Adirondacks that was a 8.5, 9 hour drive from my house. And then we've gone to Simcoe, which was 4 hours and 30 minutes. So how could you beat getting to fish in Canada and it being a shorter trip? Spend more time fishing, right? So looking forward to that. They did not have a good season last year. I think at least on Simcoe, I think their ice season started a week late because of the weather. I do try to trim the crystal hair square But what was happening, and it's happened on the last couple jigs, is when I lay it down across the collar, I tried to jam it up against the head so it holds in place as the thread pushes its way over. And 2 of the 3 at least strands were different lengths. So as soon as the thread came around and would hit that crystal hair, it would push it out of place because they weren't holding themselves fast. So I don't know if I'm twisting my fingers a little bit as I'm trimming them, because it should be fairly simple to cut all 3 strands the same length when I trim them. Oh, and let's see, we'll take one last look at this. And of course I did not look at the clock to see when we started. But what did we tie? 5? Sitting here. Very simple jig, perfect for the fall steelhead. It's that nice Mustad 2X strong hook, super sharp. It's a nice hook. I will put the exact number down below. We've talked about it before. 8388 I think is the number, but I don't waste time memorizing that kind of thing. I guess I should, right? If we're expert at what we do, right? It's just one of those things. I don't have to memorize it. I have them on my shelf. I have them marked in my catalog. I have them marked in my book. Which was another thing that I did show when we did the little bit of show and tell for the tables. I actually started thinking when I'm talking and talking to the camera here, I'll point to the right like this while I'm pointing at my other desk. But I do kind of mention the books that I have on each of my benches that occasionally I'll still look into as a reference type thing. But on the corner of my desk, and it's almost full, it's a sketchbook. And I've been writing in it since around 2000, maybe a little bit earlier. Just because you forget fine details. So for these jigs, as an example, I have a page in there that says steelhead jigs, head size, the hook that I use, the mold, if there's any special molds. For these do-it molds, they actually have I don't know if it's a mistake or if one was made for a different type of hook, but the hook sizes per the head size is off by 1 when you compare the 2 molds. So I just have a little note in there for that. But you know, it'll say the head size, the head color, thread color, tail color, any notes. So, you know, before I started this, I would have probably gone with a black tinsel. Red would have been just fine. Silver or a pearl type tinsel would have also been a good choice for tinsel. But just so I made them the same color as I did last year for this same bait shop, I just took a look in that book and pink tinsel, made sure that I did the same. So little things like that. I love showing and telling. I've always been tempted to maybe look at this sketchbook and maybe see what could be combined, maybe published. Maybe we'll do a video on it, something like that. But that will definitely be a video for a different time. So until next time, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Share any of our videos as it does help increase awareness for the channel. Add any questions, comments down below. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see over the winter months. Like I said, we did kind of get to the end of that, all the videos I had in the queue. So, you know, always looking for new ideas. So if you want to see anything specific, put that down below. But I think that will do it for us for now. So until next time, guys, keep tying tight lines.